Hello everyone. I hope you all are fine. I, Swati Sharma, welcome you again to the video class of St.JOSEPH'S Academy. Today we will read a very interesting story from our English Mulberry book, and the name of the story is The Parrot Who Would Not Talk. So before starting the story, we will quickly look at the life of the author. So students, let's learn about Ruskin Bond. He was born on 19 May 1934 in Kasauli, India. His mother left him in an early age, and after that he lived with his father. After his father died, he moved to Dehradun with his grandmother. He received his early education from Bishop Cotton School in Shimla, and during his school years, he won several writing competitions. In 1952, he completed his graduation and moved to England. At the age of 17, he began to write his first novel, The Room on the Roof. Later, he returned to India and worked as a journalist in Delhi and Dehradun for few years. Then he relocated to a town in Himalayan foothills in Mussoorie. Till now, he has written over 500 short stories, essays, and novels, and over 30 children's books. Some of the important works of Ruskin Bond include Blue Umbrella, A Flight of Pigeons, and Funny Side Up. His works have also been adapted for television and films. A Flight of Pigeons has been adapted as a film, Junoon. He won several awards. Let us read about some of them. He was awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1992 for Our Trees Still Grow in Dehra. He was awarded Padma Shri in 1999 and Padma Bhushan in 2014. He lives with his adopted family in Landour, Mussoorie. Students, now you have to identify this beautiful bird. So let us read a riddle. I have a question for you and you have to identify the bird. If you ever hear an echo, students, echo means a second sound or a voice that you hear immediately after you speak. So the question is, if you ever hear an echo, take a look around you because it might be this colorful bird. So students, you have to guess which bird is this. Yes, very good. This is a parrot. Now students, we have a small activity. Before starting the chapter, we will do this activity. So, there are two pictures given to us. We have to look at these pictures and try to find 5 differences between the parrots. So, let's start. The first picture, see, this parrot has a crest, but here the crest is missing. This is the first difference. Now, look at this. This parrot has feather, but the feather is missing here. Yes. Next, we will count them, the feathers on its head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It has 7 feathers, while 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This has 6 feathers. So, this is the third difference. Next, count the claws here and count the claws this parrot has. Yes, they have different number of claws. Next, the last difference is that this has a wide tail, but the parrot on the right has a narrow tail. So these are the 5 differences between these parrots. Now, students, we will read the story line. Let's read a story about parrot that was not quite like other parrots. So here we will read a story about a parrot that is different from other parrots. So let us read the first paragraph. When I was growing up in Missouri, almost everyone kept a pet parrot or parakeet. Sometimes these birds became great talkers. They would say things like, "Study, child, study," or "Don't be greedy, don't be greedy." These words were picked up by the bird after some member of the household had repeated them many times in front of him. So, the narrator tells that when he lived in Missouri, almost everyone used to keep a parrot or a parakeet in their homes. So, parakeet means it is a type of bird, a type of parrot that is brightly colored and has a long tail. And these parrots or parakeets, they became great talkers. They used to learn some words from their surrounding. So they used to pick up words from some member of the family. Now let us read the next line. But our parrot refused to talk. So the narrator's parrot was quite different because he refused to talk. He did not want to talk. Now the next paragraph. He had been bought by Aunt Ruby from a bird catcher who had visited all the houses on our road. Granny and grandfather were not keen on keeping a caged bird but Aunt Ruby insisted. So now the narrator tells how the parrot came to their home. So he tells us that once Aunt Ruby bought a parrot from bird catcher. Who is bird catcher? Bird catcher is a person who catches birds. So Aunt Ruby bought a parrot from a bird catcher. But Granny and grandfather, they refused to keep a caged bird. They did not want to keep a bird that has to be caged. Caged means to be kept in a cage. But Aunt Ruby insisted. Aunt Ruby did not listen and argued. So Aunt Ruby insisted on keeping the parrot. So she bought the parrot and tried to teach him to talk. And after keeping the parrot, Aunt Ruby tried to teach the parrot some words. But the parrot did not like her. But the parrot did not like Aunt Ruby, so he would not speak. Now let us read what Aunt Ruby did. Come to the last line of this page, page number 54, the last line. Kiss, kiss, she would say, putting her face close to the bars of the cage. But the parrot would back away with anger. So what happened? Aunt Ruby would say, kiss, kiss, while putting her face near the cage. But the parrot did not like it and showed anger to Aunt Ruby. Now students, let us come to the next page, page number 55. One day, the parrot suddenly dived forward and knocked Aunt Ruby's spectacles off her nose. So what happens one day? The parrot came forward and he knocked. Knocked means struck. He struck Aunt Ruby's spectacles. Spectacles means glasses that we wear on our eyes. So he struck Aunt Ruby's spectacles off her nose. After that, she did not like the parrot anymore. She started making faces at him and calling out, "You are useless, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." So what happens? Now the narrator tells us about one day when the parrot comes forward and knocks Aunt Ruby's spectacles off her nose, and from that day Aunt Ruby began to dislike the parrot, and she used to say him bad words and she used to make faces at him. She said, "You are useless, can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." So Aunt Ruby used to say these type of words to the parrot. Now the next paragraph. Grandmother then put me in charge of feeding the parrot. He was quite happy to take green chilies and ripe tomatoes from my hand. I also gave him slices of mango. This gave me chance to eat a few mangoes myself. So now the narrator tells that after this incident, grandmother gave him the responsibility or made him the in charge for feeding the parrot. So now the narrator used to feed the parrot, and the parrot was quite happy to have green chilies and ripe tomatoes from narrator's hand. The narrator also gave slices of mango to the parrot, as the narrator also got chance to have some mangoes himself. Now the next paragraph. One afternoon, while everyone was in the dining room, I gave the parrot his lunch. By mistake, I left the cage open. Seconds later, the bird was winging its way into the freedom of the mango orchard. So now what happens? One afternoon, when everyone was in the dining room, the narrator comes to feed the parrot. So the narrator was there to give lunch to the parrot, and by mistake he left the cage open. And what happened immediately after that? The bird was winging. Winging means flying. So the bird came out of the cage and began to fly. Seconds later, the bird was winging its way into the freedom of the mango orchard. So what happens? Immediately the parrot comes out of the cage and starts to fly, and he flies to the mango orchard and gets the freedom. Now the parrot becomes free. Now he is not caged. So come to the next paragraph. At the same time, grandfather came onto the veranda and remarked, "I see, your aunt's parrot has escaped." So soon the grandfather comes out into the veranda. Veranda means an open space in front of the house with a railing around it. So now the grandfather comes into the veranda and he says, "I see your I see your aunt's parrot has escaped. So grandfather says that I have seen that your aunt's parrot has escaped. And then what happens? The narrator says, the door was quite loose. I said with a shrug. So the narrator says that yes, the door was quite loose. So he was able to fly from the cage. Now the next paragraph. Aunt Ruby was upset. I thought we would never see the parrot again. But a few days later, I found the bird sitting on the veranda railing. Unselfishly, I gave the parrot half of my mango. So what happens after this incident? When the parrot flew away, Aunt Ruby was very upset. And the narrator thought that the parrot would not come back. But to everybody's surprise, a few days later, the bird was sitting on the veranda railing and without any greed, that is unselfishly, the narrator gave half of his mango to the parrot and the parrot started eating the mango. Now we will read the next paragraph. While the bird was enjoying the mango, Aunt Ruby came out of her room. So the bird was eating the mango and suddenly what happened? Aunt Ruby came out of her room and cried out, "Look, there is my parrot. He must have missed me." So now Aunt Ruby was happy to see the parrot and she says words like, "My parrot is back and he would have missed me." Now the next paragraph. With a loud squawk, the parrot flew out of her reach and perched on the nearest rose bush. He glared at Aunt Ruby and screamed at her in my aunt's familiar voice, "You are useless. Can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." So now what happens? After Aunt Ruby comes out and says, "Look, there's my parrot. He must have missed me." Now the parrot listens to these words and he makes a loud noise. He makes a loud sound that is known as squawk. So squawk means a loud noise made by a bird. So here the parrot makes a loud squawk and flew out of her reach and the parrot flew away from Aunt Ruby. And he went near the rose bush. He perched on the nearest rose bush. Perched means to sit at a height. So now the parrot was sitting at the nearest rose bush. He looked at Aunt Ruby and started screaming in a voice similar to Aunt Ruby's and he spoke the words, "You are useless. Can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." Now students, let's come to the last paragraph. Aunt Ruby went ruby red and ran inside her room. But that was not the end. The parrot became a regular visitor to the garden and veranda. And whenever it saw Aunt Ruby, it would call out, "You are useless. Can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." So what happens? The parrot now repeats the words of Aunt Ruby and the words are, "You are useless. Can't talk, can't sing, can't dance." And after listening to these words, Aunt Ruby became very angry. So ruby red means it shows that Aunt Ruby was angry. And she ran inside her room. But that was not the end. And what happens next? The parrot became a regular visitor to the garden. Now, the parrot started visiting the veranda and the garden regularly. And whenever he saw Aunt Ruby, he would call out, he would speak the words, "You are useless, can't talk, can't sing, and can't dance." Now the last line. The parrot had learned to talk after all. So at the end, what happens? The parrot learns to talk. Now, I hope you enjoyed reading this story. Now, students, you have to read the chapter again and learn and write the word meanings of this chapter in your mulberry copy. See you in another video. Till then, keep studying and be safe. Thank you.